Hello, and welcome to The Fool and the Philosopher.
The Philosopher and the Fool.
So, that was a lot of work to get the intro done.
Yeah,
I don't know what happened to my voice there.
sometimes.
So, I was going to tell you, I think, the funniest joke ever.
Alright.
I think it's like, it just
Better Nate than Lever.
No, it's a very quick joke.
Oh.
And it's, I don't know, it gets funnier the more you think about it.
Alright.
And you've heard it before, but you just gotta hear it, it's just so good.
Alright.
There's this pirate walking around, he's got like this great big like wheel down his pants, and someone walks up to him and says, you know, you got like a ship's wheel down your pants? I know, it's driving me nuts. And I just think it's like,
I've never heard of it before.
I think it's just the funniest joke in existence.
I've never heard that before.
It just gets funnier the more you think about it. Alright, enough of that. So, you know how, like, it's a good one, isn't it? So, you know how we think about... Okay. Now you're just...
No, I'm not. I'm not. It's not bad.
It's not bad. I'm just laughing at you, basically, at this point.
No, because you're like... Okay.
Yeah, so you know how we can...
I was also thinking, like, this is why you need bass cams and stuff.
Yeah. So the world is like, yeah. What's wrong with you?
I don't know. I just decided to stop taking myself seriously. Because I found a lot of trouble laughing at stuff. So when you told me it's going to be like a really funny joke, I was like, alright, I'm going to loosen up because I've been like wound up for a while. I'm just going to loosen up. Let this joke wash over
Good.
me.
It's getting all that stress out. Good. Alright. So you know, like I was talking to our mom about like retirement. Because I'm thinking of retiring, and she was talking about her retirement in the future sometime, or if she will, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was thinking how it's funny that we think that we're going to retire, because there's this very...
You only expire.
No, there's this very tiny period of human history where people have done something steady, because the time without major war has been like 1940 to now.
Yeah.
If that, like, it depends on what you count as a major war. But, you know, like a nuke might drop tomorrow, and like suddenly you're not thinking about retirement, you're thinking about getting down south or up north quick enough to get to like the equator so you can grow food easier. Like, like your priorities entirely change, and it's just odd how we think that things will keep going. Because it could all just end.
Good.
Alright, well, I'll ask you a question. Well, I'll get some engagement out of you yet.
Sorry.
No, I got this. So, stories, right?
Yeah.
There's stories about heroes. They're useful because...
I was just expecting you just to keep on talking. I thought you had more.
No.
You usually don't invite me engage. You keep on going, don't stop going.
Yeah, no, I didn't have one for that, really. But, yeah, okay, so, stories, right? Bam! So, some are about heroes, and they're useful because they teach us how to be. And some stories are about villains, and those stories are useful because they teach us how not to be. So, stories teach us how to be or how not to be. And so that's where morality comes from, is these stories, right?
Yeah.
But my question is, how do we know if the story is about a hero or a villain?
Well, you see, it depends on the size of their chin.
What if you don't know the size of their chin?
It's not a very well written story.
But actually, how do you know if a story is about a hero or a villain?
Because stories are about heroes.
No, but what if the story is about a villain?
No, but they aren't. Stories are about
Some
heroes.
stories are about villains to teach you how not to be. Like Portrait of Dorian Gray.
That's not a story, that's a propaganda piece.
No, it's not a story.
No, it's a propaganda piece.
No, it's not a story.
If the main character is a villain, it's not a story.
I think it still can be.
Someone's ideological
hootenanny. No, I think it's possible. I still have a story about a villain. There's also...
Well, stories about villains usually like try to really tell you that it's a villain. So.
Aragon?
Aragon?
Yeah, he's part of a rebel force trying to destabilize an empire and murder its citizens. He's the villain.
No, he isn't. He's the good guy. He's trying to beat back the evil empire.
Alright, even if the story is about a hero and villains, how do you know which ones are the heroes and which ones are the villains if they're not the main character?
Because the author can't tell you.
But how?
By making the villain do nasty things and the good guy...
Yeah, but that's exactly my point. Where do the nasty things and the good things come from? Like, how do we know that they're doing... Like, if we have a story, right? And the person's doing all this evil stuff, but they're called the hero, then how do we know it's evil? Or or because
Well,
what we learn is from the stories.
Yeah, but it also comes from our own judgment from the more simple stories. Because you work up from simple stories to more complex stories. So you work up from the very...
So you think it's compared to other stories?
Yeah. So, yes, you start with, like, something simple like Little Red Riding Hood, where the wolf is the villain and the woodsman is the hero.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So you start with simple.
Or maybe...
Grimm's fairy tales are probably a bad example, but...
I guess my thought was, I wonder if... Because I've been reading Maps of Meaning by Jordan Peterson, which is hugely about like how stories teach us what is good and evil. And I just thought that seemed to be a flaw in his argument almost, because the knowledge of good and evil had to come from somewhere else originally, or we wouldn't know if the story was about good or evil.
Yeah, well, but that comes from the most simple stories.
But even the simple story, how would you know if it's good or evil?
Because the simple stories just straight up tell you this guy's evil, this guy's good.
But,
and then it shows their actions of what good is and what evil is.
But how does the storyteller know as well?
Because they were taught that as well.
Yeah, but when you go back to the first storyteller, or it could be as well in comparison to other stories.
Well, it's like, this is the story of Roland, a very good man. He fought his evil brother named Relico. And then you say all the good things that Roland did and all the bad things that Relico did.
Yeah.
And then you have the Frenchman, for some reason, beat up a Spanish man, even though they're brothers. And but you sort of tell the story, like you show what the good things are and the bad things are, and then how good triumphs over evil. And that's like the start, the first story. And then it's like, oh, people can know from the first story. And it can keep on going, building on other stories.
My other thought, just talking to you here, would be that it's because, like you say, building on stories, but it could also be in comparison to other stories. So you have like 50 stories that talk about what you should do, and then like 30 of them happen to be the same, so they override the minority, and those form to create a larger story about what is good, and then a bunch of those are made, and then like you chuck out one or two that are bad, and it goes on, getting the pure and pure distillation of what is good.
Yeah.
And which is kind of what his book's about, so I guess that one passes. I have some other stuff
Well, I want to talk about this retirement thing.
Okay.
So, you're just like, it's strange to think about retirement because humans never really did it before? Or...
No, it's more strange to think about stability. Like, I have a 40-year plan or something, like...
40-year plan? That's absurd.
Well, like, I'm going to go to work, and then I'm going to retire, and I'll live off my retirement, kind of thing. Like, something like that is a bit absurd because the entire structure of the world might change. Like, aliens might invade.
Like, just even thinking that plan will work?
Like, I wonder if there's ever been a point in human history where a farmer's like, I'm going to be a farmer. And then for 80 years, they're a farmer. And, like,
1800.
Because, well, there was, like, the Napoleonic Wars, which were huge. There was the War of 1812. There was the American...
The 1900s in Sweden.
Sweden was conquered by the Nazis.
Not Sweden. What?
Switzerland?
Switzerland.
Yeah, but the whole world was going crazy around them.
Yeah, but they weren't.
Yeah, I don't know if that meant... But they were, like, getting refuge and stuff, so...
Were they?
Yeah, like...
How did they get over the mountains?
I don't know. Passages. Like, Jews were getting smuggled in from France. I think. There's reading about that.
Huh.
And...
when did World War II end?
World War II ended 1945.
Alright, 1945 till the 90s.
Yeah, well, that's
ignoring the Cold War.
Yeah, that's sort of what I'm... And, like, Korean War and Vietnam War and...
Yeah.
Afghan War and...
Yeah, and the terrorist actions of various organizations.
Iraq War, the war in Syria right now, like all these things. But I don't know if there's really... what we have is people who are now retired and living off their retirement, and they were born in like the 30s and 40s, and they might be the only people who ever get the chance to experience that. Maybe the baby boomers will as well.
Yeah.
But I wonder, like, it seems unlikely to assume that everything's just going to continue as it is.
It's kind of interesting, like, it's the working is sort of like you work and you have a promise that you won't have to work later on, but that system's only been around for like less than 100 years, I guess.
Yeah, and it's only ever panned out for one generation so far.
Yeah, but a lot of people depend on that promise or like look towards it.
Yeah, exactly. So, I was just thinking about that. Like, it's a bit...
Well, I mean, soldiers have always retired.
Human history has been very...
Maybe that's where we got from, because soldiers have always retired.
I think everyone's always retired at some point. Like, you get your family to take over, or... But you just... The expectation of, like, this is how life is. Like, life is, you go to school, then you go to work, then you retire, and then, like... I don't know if more than one or two generations is ever going to experience that. Yeah. And it's strangely how the world is talked about.
Yeah.
Like, at least that's how they talked about it when I was in school.
Same.
Definitely had some teachers that said otherwise, and I do think I think university is, it's not a bad concept, but it's a concept that needs to change because you can learn so much more, so much easier online because the best teachers ever are online. So you don't need to go to a suboptimal teacher and pay a ton of money and spend a lot of time. You can go to like Sal Khan on Khan Academy and learn math like that. Like he's such a good teacher. Or you can learn like psychology from Jordan Peterson. Bam. Or you can learn like I'm sure there's other teachers that do stuff online. I think like I can't think of any off the top of my head, but they must be there.
Yeah.
And there's like a website called the No Excuse List, and it has like free resources for anything you would want to learn.
I feel it's probably a product of going through elementary school and high school. If you were to change the system for like the self-learning thing, like going online to learn stuff, is because you're forced to learn with college and university. Like it's sort of...
Well, you're not forced in college and university. Because...
I mean, it's sort of like you have the expectation you're going to do stuff. Like you're going to be doing stuff for people. Like you have to, hand in these assignments. I have to do these things.
Yeah, but the whole point of those assignments is just to judge how well you've learned it. So if you're the one learning yourself, then you'll go at your own pace and you'll be like, I know this stuff, I can move on, or I don't know, move on. Because they don't have to worry about costs. Because what they're doing is they're like, we don't want to put a student in a third year class that's first year because that would work if it was one-on-one, but it's not, so it'll just waste the teacher's time.
Yeah.
So it's just like cost and time allotment. But if you have it all online with the best possible teachers,
but I'm saying like you've sort of learned to have the dependency of being taught like that from elementary school and high school.
High school and elementary could change to a method where
I'm saying
it's about learning how to learn.
I'd feel like that's how you'd have to do it.
But I think
because like one of the huge things that happened for me in high school is my grade 12 physics class.
Yeah.
We had like a one-on-one with our teacher, and basically like he quit teaching us in the last month of classes. It kind of sucked. However, we were going through the units so fast as required, like all the learning outcomes so fast that we would have like weeks of learning other stuff he taught us. Like he would teach us economics or he'd teach us something else. Like he just teach different lessons because he had the luxury of being able to do that, like teaching just two people. So it's basically almost one-on-one.
Yeah.
For like an hour or so every day. And so like even after he left, we like finished the last two chapters in a very short amount of time. And then we were just kind of done.
Yeah, and imagine if you had the best teacher in every subject, and not just one-on-one, but the best.
Yeah.
Like he was one-on-one, and probably not the best, he might have been.
He's decent.
Doesn't mean he's the best, though, but you can get the very best online.
Yeah.
And as long as they put it online.
Mm-hmm.
And...
But also, he was like teaching for us. Like he's like, okay, I know how both these students are work, and they work fairly well together. So.
And the concept of
so he's teaching to us, I guess, like teaching to our strength of learning.
Work might change soon.
Yeah.
Because automation is getting to a point where.
But the man won't let that happen, Cameron. He wants to keep people's spirits down.
No, the man wants money, and you get more money through automation. So.
No, but. If everything's automated, then everyone else won't be doing the automated work, and so they can start competing with you and taking your money from you, because they'll also be having automation.
I think, but if everyone's just doing it, then you'll just like reach a natural market saturation because food will basically be free at that point and other supplies, and serve a lot of services like driving and getting served. And so I think you'll get to, we're coming very close to a point where food will be basically produced for free. And then what's the point of charging for it? You could either like just have companies willing to make food even though they don't get much money for it and be like the only company that does it, which sounds scary in some ways. Or you could have governments like take over and shift taxes to like food production and then redistribute, which for the citizens, which also sounds kind of, or you don't even have to redistribute. You could just basically, like the government doesn't take over. What they do is they basically ensure that everything keeps running. They hire all the maintenance people and stuff. And
you get your allotted food cubes.
Well, no, they would just go to the supermarkets as usual, even. But then you just take it off the shelf when you're done or something. Like you can see that, or what you could do as well is, but that gets like very government tampery or very like corporation tampery. So you could even do. This is why a lot of proponents of universal basic income are also futurists, because you could also say like, all right, well, we'll just pay everyone so they can get their food for free, which could jack the price up of food, could do other weird things, but. It's like, what do you do when food becomes free to produce? You might as well just hand it out. And once people don't need to do anything to survive because it's just there, people are going to work I think people
will look to the stars.
No, I think people need work.
Space, the final frontier. To boldly go, no one's gone.
Yeah, they might start doing stuff like that, but I think like a lot of stuff like that, like people.
The bottom of the ocean. To boldly go, and no one has
Not just exploration though, but like work more on inventions or art or sports or
to boldly make the best shoe no one has made before.
Just focus a lot more on because people I think need to work. Like and what that work is, it doesn't have. You don't have to associate work with soul-draining labor. That's different. Work and labor are not the same things. Like you create a work of art. That's a work. You're working, and I mean, for some artists, it's probably pretty soul-draining just to create a painting or something. They probably hate it, but they're good at it, so they just do it to get by.
That just sounds on painting, destroying them.
Well, they just do it every day, and it's formulaic, and it makes them money, and they're not happy with it. And it's just wrecking them. It's boring. It's a grind. Something like that.
Yeah. Oh God, I hate drawing. Do it every day.
So I think school will change to be more about just look online for your favorite interests, and elementary school will change more to, or primary school rather, will change more to
those prep schools. Sorry, those prep schools in the United States. Those like ones you can pay. You pay money to get into them. The expensive ones, and there's a lot less students and more teacher interaction. It's like, oh, what do you want to learn? They sort of do, like, teachers ask the students, what do you want to learn, and focus on that. And those kids seem to do fairly well after they leave those schools.
I think schools will probably shift. One-on-one stuff is great, but I don't know how feasible that is for primary schools.
Yeah.
Until you get, like, a really advanced AI that can cooperate.
Or slaves.
Or if, it's not ideal.
Well, I'm just talking about Rome and Athens and stuff like that.
But ideally, and that wouldn't work for everyone though, because then half your population would need to be slaves to have one-on-one.
Yeah.
So it doesn't work. And so although Rome had like...
Wasn't it 1 to 5 or something?
They had like 5 times their population was slaves.
Yeah.
So I guess it could have worked in Rome, potentially, but not for the slaves, although they learned from somewhere. But you could have like parents taking on the teaching role more and more, and you could have like, just whenever your kid says something like, why is a cloud fluffy or something? Then you go, all right, well, there's different kinds of clouds, and they do like.
Why is clouds fluffy? And the education system gets ruined by dads.
It's like, let's find out. And
the education system just gets ruined by dads, like Calvin's dad. Why are clouds fluffy? Oh well, you see, it's because whatever.
It's wool.
Yeah.
That gets released. It's like from New Zealand because
it's
they have all the spare wool, so they release it.
No, the cotton fluff.
Yeah.
That comes off trees. It drifts up into everyone where it goes. It drifts up into the sky and gets caught up there.
But you could have something like that, or you could have like schools. But I think more likely you'd have schools focus on more broad skills. So you would have like history and psychology and mathematics, but you wouldn't have like the sciences, because the sciences are more narrow and you can choose to look into any of them, but they're not as universally useful, except for not being ignorant about stuff. But for like a more like if you know math, you know psychology, you know like history, then you're pretty solid.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, because then you have a background for all the sciences. History, you have a background for like politics, human interaction. Psychology, you have a background for how to be a person. And so if you know how to be a person, you know how people interact, and you know how to do anything, then that's a pretty solid basis.
Yeah. And also, if like work changes, then they don't have to teach you to accept the soul grind that comes.
Even like English is debatable whether you need it. Like it's great to have literature, but it's not necessarily needed for everyone. Potentially, I'm not sure on that.
But it's needed for education.
I'd have to think about that. Being able to like read is useful because then you can learn more, of course.
Being able to write is useful because then you can pass on your information.
Yeah. Well, that's why like philosophy, like can be quite hard to read the books unless you know more vocabulary, because they use stupidly big words for no reason. They think it's slightly more accurate.
Yeah.
So it could be important.
In lay of the Cothwigump hitting the scrotum, it is simple to explain why the morality of not kicking cats is preferable. Please see my index about what those weird words earlier meant.
Well, they don't even do that. They just make the assumption everyone knows.
There was one that I read like that, or maybe someone else added the index. It was absurd.
The one the Jordan Peterson's book, he uses valence a lot. So he says, like, to determine an object's valence, you do this. And it's definitely trips me up. And another one he uses is affect with an A, which is about changing your mind rather than effect, which is changing the world. And but he also does a pun because he's a psychologist, and psychologists use affect a lot, so they know the difference. But it's a very hard one for like everyone else,
man to get,
like me. It's very hard for the layman like me to figure out what's going on. And then he does a pun where he says like knowledge of this will affect this, but he does it with A instead of E. And he like italicizes it, so we know he did it on purpose, because he's basically saying it will change your mind about something. So he's doing a pun, which certainly doesn't help because the sentence is already like a paragraph long and have tons of parentheses and hyphens and everything in them to add on more and more words for clarity. It could be rewritten to be like a third the length, and then you could add in examples and it's going to be way clearer because it also doesn't contain any examples.
Oh really? I think that was done.
I don't know. I haven't heard anything about 12 Rules for Life that makes me think it's the same yet.
No, it probably isn't, but 12 Rules for Life is a lot more straightforward.
But basically, so as I understand Jordan Peterson's book, and I'm only like a fifth of the way through, but basically how you interact with the world is you live in the unbearable present and there is a desirable future.
And that's retirement.
And you want to go to the desirable future. And so the method by which you do that is your everyday life, and you determine that method through your culture. Your culture taught you how to be. And oftentimes your method won't work. Something will get, so you're trying to determine the means to the end.
Yeah.
Sometimes your means will change. So let's say you want to like go outside. So you're going to open the door to go outside. So that's your means, that's your end. So you go and open the door, go outside. But sometimes things will change. The door jams. You can't open it.
Yeah.
And so then you think, okay, well, I have to use the other door. So you go through that door.
Yeah.
And so you've restructured your reality, and so he says you've gone into chaos to restructure reality. That your thoughts have changed, you have to go down to chaos. Except in that case, going to the other door, you haven't really even gone to chaos because it's still the same. You haven't really changed your framework. But let's say both the doors are jammed, and so you have to go out the window. Then you might have dipped a bit closer to chaos, because then you've had to restructure how you leave the building. But let's say the door jams and the house catches fire and there's smoke coming up. So you go out the window, you put out the fire, but then you realize, man, these doors jam. My house isn't safe. I have to restructure how I think about my house now. I have to restructure my reality because my house could kill me. And so that's even more. So it's all about descending to chaos when your plans don't work, reintegrating what you've learned so that you have a more flexible, dynamic model that can account for more, and keep doing that and that. So that's his first bit. That's how people do things.
You are listening to The Philosopher and the Fool. This is a mid-roll. Just so you know.
And then the second bit is about how stories teach you how to be like the hero. So you aim towards the hero, and so the hero of the past is the person you want to be. That's your culture, and that's the great father who like tells you what to do. But the great father is old, so they're wrong. So you have to reintegrate their knowledge into a new society. So the hero has to go into the wilderness to
Go into the underworld.
No, here, let me read the nonsense that I somewhat. So yeah, you have to go out into the world though to like reshape, to divide what is known from what is unknown, and that's how you turn chaos into order and disorder.
Yep.
And that's how you differentiate the world. So you say what's dangerous, and it talks about how chaos is potential as well. It's not just evil. The unknown is potential because it could be good or bad. Yeah. And so the hero is the one that knows how to make good of the bad. And the entire framework of humans' culture and mythology and story and religion is to teach you not how to be, but how to deal with the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And to teach you how to deal with the unknown is an incredibly complicated thing, because that means you have to learn knowledge about something that you don't know about.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I understand the book so far. But he's got tons of little like nuances and stuff. Like he talks about mythological reasons for everything. Like the reason that femininity is often associated with mystery is because
it's usually guys writing and they don't understand women.
Yeah, maybe that's it. But it can also be from chaos comes new things, and women can give birth. It's a mystery. It's unknown, and life and stuff springs.
Is it a boy? Is it a girl? It's a mystery.
Also, women are typically the ones who comfort and take care of people in like the one-on-one level.
Yeah.
Men take care of people on the men are like the walls of society, and women are like the house in a way.
Wait, no, you said scaffolding in the building, so I'm confused.
Yeah, that one as well. But men tend to be like the walls. They're the structure. and they don't let you leave the walls. They're like, don't leave the walls, but the hero has to leave the walls. But they also protect you. The walls protect you. Whereas women are like the house, and it's like the house is a good place to be, but if you stay in the house forever, you'll destroy yourself because you're just pathetic and useless.
Yeah.
You never
leave the house.
Yeah, you never even leave the house.
Loser.
And so he talks about being a hero. Why
Be a hero. Leave your mother's basement.
why it's often the hero has to fight a dragon and rescue the virgin and save her is because the virgin is the positive aspect of femininity, because she is the eternally renewed, because she's like pure and renewed, and that's where new things can spring from. So he has to go out and get the positive aspect of chaos, which is the dragon. He has to fight the dragon. So he had like this section on that, and so I wrote it down so I could understand it a bit. And so and then reading back what I read, it's like, you can't save the world unless you have sex with a female virgin. That's basically what I got. But and because he considers sex as a generative thing, so it's like you're creating the mythological terms, and so he goes on about that. And then also, believe everything you're told at first, and then question all you know. So basically, your culture you have to accept because that's how you survive. But then thinking about your culture is wrong. So adapt. And also, he talks about how you are the world which shaped you. Because if you took a human in complete isolation to a new universe and looked at them, you could determine what the world was like based on them. Because you could hold fire up to them, and they'd be like, ah, and you're like, okay, in that universe, people burn or are afraid of fire for some reason. And you'd show them like a dog, and they'd be like, oh, and it's like, okay, they're companion. You could determine like the entire world from a person. And so he says you're a reflection of the world which shaped you. And the world, so people actually represent, and he says things aren't just what they are, which is, so like you could say this is like this playing card is an arrangement of molecules, but it's also potential for a game. Ooh, a 2, that's exciting. That's a nice low number. It could be good for a game. And it's a club. I'm not really a fan of clubs. So it's sharp. It could hurt you. It's yours, and you're knowing that I'm touching it. Like it's all sorts of. It's not just the object.
Yeah.
Right. And so he goes on about that a lot, and he says it's actually the object is the least relevant part of it even.
It's everything associated to it.
Yeah. And that is like the real aspect. And so his argument's kind of that gods are real.
So
gods are everything that's attached to an object in a way. So that makes the gods more real than us.
So money...
Or not more real than us, but more real than empirical reality.
But like money, in paper money is very real then, following that logic, because it's value?
Well, real as anything else. But it's a good example because its value is a lot less in a literal sense. But even a literal sense isn't anything. Like water isn't valuable. Like people say water is more valuable than money. And in one sense that's true, but in another sense they're both just arrangements of molecules, or even they're just the same atoms arranged in different ways. Like they're worthless in that sense. They have no, because value is the moment you give something value, you're making a judgment.
Yeah.
And
they're all just collections of electrons and neutrons and
but even
protons.
then, like if you say that, but we're all just a collection of quarks, or we're all just a galaxy. So it's like, what level of analysis do you even use? So you can't really, you have to use a subjective analysis to understand the world, otherwise it's meaningless.
Money, it buys stuff.
And you can switch between layers. He talks about that too. It's like a huge part is being able to switch between different layers. Like walking to the door, you might take 2 left steps and 1 right step, or 3 right steps and 1 big left step. It doesn't really matter. That doesn't change your plans. But on a higher level, you might open the door, or you might run through the door. On an even higher level, you might not leave the house, or like on an even higher level, like the universe spins and nothing changed. Your decision didn't do anything. And all the levels are there. So there's infinite information. So you have to distill it to what you want in the moment, because sometimes one matters for another. And I think that's also why, like, nihilists, they're just on the wrong level of resolution. They're like, well, nothing matters. And it's like, yeah, well, just look at the level of revolution where you, like...
That you exist on, not the...
Yeah, or where you, like,
ones.
you pluck the butterfly's wings and it can't flap them and the hurricane doesn't happen. You save 1 million lives. You know.
1 million is a lot of people.
Although I think that's a misapplication of chaos theory, because as I understand chaos theory, it's basically, if you have a weather program...
Yeah.
And you stick all the numbers in it to calculate what the weather's going to be tomorrow, it's pretty good. It's like, well, there's a cold front coming, so it's going to be cold. Bam. But how weather programs work is because it's like, well, what's 2 days from now going to be? It's like, well, first I have to calculate what tomorrow is, so I know where the clouds have moved to, because it takes so much power. And then I have to use that information to calculate the next thing. So it does that, and it's like, tomorrow's like, but it doesn't do that like every day, it does it like every hour. So it's like, bam, 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 okay, did this. And so that's fine. It's like, so it's basically a program, to simplify it, that's like, what is 2 plus 1 times 3. So you're like, okay, it's 9. And then the next day, it's like, take that number, add 1 again, and multiply it by 3 again. So then it's like 10, so now it's 30, and so on and so on. So let's do it one more time. So you have 2 times 30 is 60, 2 plus, so you have 30 plus 2, is 32 times 3 is 96. Okay, but what if you got, at the very start, you forgot to calculate for a butterfly flapping its wings? So at the start, you're like, All right. Well, it was 2 plus 3. Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's 2 times 3, 9 plus 1, so it's 10. So it's like, but it'd be 11 now. So you're 1 off. Who cares?
Yeah.
But then you're at 35 instead of 32 or something, and then you're at like 100 and something instead of 90, and you just like deviate wildly off course if you don't calculate everything.
Oh.
So I didn't explain that very well, but that's basically, I didn't get the numbers right, so but that's basically like, if you don't account for everything, then your model is going to be imperfect, and because it's multiplying itself over and over again, it's going to deviate it's like if you miss a shot by 1 degree when you're shooting a rifle.
Yeah.
After 400 yards, you've missed by like
a mile.
Yeah, well, not by a mile, but like you're only 1 degree off, but it's traveled so far that you've missed by the
whatever angle of the
something. The sine, the cos. Yeah.
You missed by a lot.
You can do the math yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't feel like doing it. No, trigonometry always takes me away.
Yep.
After like get my head sorted. So yeah, that's chaos theory, which I want.
Mid-roll, another mid-roll for days.
But so his idea as well is like good and evil, like yin and yang sort of thing, like the chaos and order. So you can't just be in order because then that's the tyrant father, and you can't just be in chaos because then that's the smothering or all-devouring mother.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to like be the hero and separate chaos from order, and be the line, and in the yin yang symbol, you know, the black and the white.
Yes.
That's called the that line in the center is where you're supposed to be, and that's called Tao. That's Tao, and you want to be between them at the center.
You won't be at Tao?
Yeah, so you want to be on that infinitely thin line between in the yin and yang.
Infinitely thin, did you say?
Yeah.
That sounds like an infinite staircase.
Well, it does, and I was like, holy cow, this is very similar to our thing. Like I think the Buddhists stole from us.
Yeah, time-traveling Buddhists.
Yeah, time-traveling Buddhists.
And they slap us before we can write down our ideas.
But it does make me think that we have stumbled onto like a terrible secret, and no, it makes me think that like this is Jordan Peterson's point, is that all cultures throughout humanity, history, have come across the same idea of the balance of the hero, where you have to integrate the old and continually develop the new.
Yeah.
You have to
have balance.
You have to rescue your dead father from the underworld and give him one of your eyes, so that you have past with sight, like you have knowledge, forethought, or something, or like whatever.
You have to knock out one of your own eyes, become Odin.
Yeah, you have to give up something for. Well, that's sacrifice, I think, is that case.
You have to throw your nose away, and
he talks about sacrifice as well.
You have to get cut into pieces and die and lose all the oxygen. Then we get stuck back together. You turn into a blue god of the underworld.
Well, that like getting chopped up bit, that is destroying what is old, so you can build something new. So you're like you shape the world from the remains of the fallen.
I like that he's blue because he like lost all his oxygen or
I
something.
thought it's because he's like
Well, it's a little of both, but yeah.
Osiris.
Yeah.
Whatever.
God. Got kicked off a mountain when you were a child, so you bounce a bunch and get really crippled. So then you can forge one. Nope, that doesn't work.
Well, he's one of the gods, and the gods are like the gods need to be ruled by a super god, which is a hero, which is in that case.
Yeah.
And then eventually all the god, because they form a hierarchy of like values and morality, which is his argument that the gods will eventually. Gods are emotions, because emotions being inside people is a new invention, and eventually you have to decide which emotions are more important. Like, is pride more important than anger? And so that's why Zeus becomes king of the gods, because what he is the most important thing to be. You have to be angry at your enemies and kind to those that love you, and you have to this and this. But then even Zeus is old and has to be superseded by like Hercules. And before Zeus, was Kronos, and Kronos was like the hero, but who fought against Ouranos and had to overthrow the old ruler. And
that's an interesting thing, actually. Do you think the story of do you think it was like comic books or a book, the Legends Gods? Like originally people actually like worshipped Ouranos, right?
Yeah.
And then they worshipped Kronos, and then they worshipped Zeus, or do you think it started with the worship of Zeus and that story is there?
I think I'm not sure. I think
because if you like go by comic books, then it would have started with like I don't know, starting at Kronos or something fighting against Ouranos, and then
I think it could have actually gone generation after generation. Because I think how it starts potentially is what happens is, let's say a person's out hunting and a bush is rustling.
Yeah.
And so they don't have words to describe abstract reasoning at this point, right?
Yeah.
Abstract thought. So they run back to their village where they're safe.
Yeah.
And someone says, "What happened?" And they say, "I ran from a bush." You ran from a bush. And it's like, yes, the bush was, and you can't say scary because you don't have abstract thoughts like that. And because it's like, why'd you run from the bush that was rustling? And it's like, because anything could have been in the bush.
Yeah.
And so you say, what do you mean anything could have been in the bush? Because there was something that had no form that could have killed me in there, or it could have been positive, but the chance of it killing me was there.
So it'd be a nymph.
So there was a demon in the bush.
Yeah.
I was chased by a demon in the bush. And it's like, I ran from a bush once. That must have been that demon. Yeah. So we'll call the demon fear. So fear, I was feared. There was fear in the bush. I was afraid.
Mm-hmm.
I was beset by the demon of fear, which was the infinite potential of what could dwell in that bush. And so I was afraid, and that's where emotions come from.
Mm-hmm.
And so each like emotional state, or like something like war, or like that's all demons. And then you say, okay, well, war and hunger, that's all pretty similar. That's Aries, you can have that. And then you go, these need like a ruler. And I don't think like Aries got it first go, of course, because like Zeus is based on Baal. For one thing, and Baal is based on something called Anu, I think, and it just goes back and back and back. And I think the oldest god is possibly, I don't remember, but that we know of. And I think it just goes back. So yeah, I could imagine it being like, but I don't think it would be like, Ouranos gave, like people worship Ouranos and then worship Zeus. I think people worshipped Anu. And then people worship Zeus. So I think you switch religions whenever you go another level, basically.
Yeah, you switch your religions and the other person gets kicked out.
Yeah, or like they become subordinate. Like Marduk in the Enuma Elish.
Yeah.
He's like a hero god, and all the gods, he kind of overthrows Tiamat, the chaos and evil. And then all the other gods swear to serve him, though he's younger. So if he doesn't kick out the old gods, they just become subordinate to him. And like Aphrodite doesn't get kicked out; she serves Zeus after that.
Yeah,
that sort of thing. So Zeus doesn't quite kick, but he and Ouranos both cut their father to pieces.
Yeah,
and not Ouranos, sorry, Kronos.
Yeah,
yeah, I've been saying Ouranos a bunch. It's Kronos.
Yeah,
but Ouranos is actually like one of the previous one. It just goes back and back because Ouranos, he didn't overthrow Gaia, but he was like order defined on the world. Because she was earth and he was sky, whereas before you just had mist.
Yeah.
Where it's just like everything mixed together and you don't know what it is. And so I think Jordan Peterson's onto something. I don't know if I necessarily agree with him still, because it's a bit of a circular argument, but it's based in mythology that does seem consistent to, like, he hasn't proven it, but all the mythology seems to support it.
Yeah,
so, but I wonder if you could do that with anything. You could say, like, all myths are about like killing people that get in your way, and and that's what it's just a fun action story about killing, and like I don't know.
Well, I mean, even Gilgamesh has a flood story.
Yeah, well, I think that's different. I think that's just because a lot of parts of the world.
Well, no, but Gilgamesh has every story.
Yeah, but that's because also it's like
you're just retelling the same ideas.
Well, if in Africa before everyone split apart, or in Mesopotamia, you had the same story, and then they're going to keep the story.
Yeah.
The story's not going to go away.
Embellish it a little.
It's just going to change a little bit. Yeah. Like you're going to have wolves instead of elephants, or you're going to have or bears. But I think
or demon bushes.
But it could also be argued, even though Jordan Peterson has seen what he wants to in story, that's kind of what stories are for, and that's kind of his argument, that stories teach you how to be. And that's my question of how do you know if there's a hero or if there's a villain? It could be that you determine who the hero and the villain is. But because everyone agrees, there is something in us connected, like Jung's idea of an unconscious collective mind almost, which isn't quite fair to him, but like that idea of like, there's something in us that knows good when it sees it.
Yeah, well, it's just the cultural zeitgeist that's being instilled in birth.
Yeah, kind of like the culture just keeps redefining, and it sort of is like that.
I mean, it's all just a project of her upbringing.
So and that's his, like, it is all upbringing, but the upbringing based in biology, because you determine what is...
Because there's demons in the bushes.
Yeah, well, it's how you can talk about emotions, right, in theory. This isn't necessarily true, but it's kind of what I seem to think is his argument. And it's remarkably similar to what we came up with, starting with Kant, who I think is a lot more solid foundation. But he doesn't... he quotes Kant a few times, but he also thinks Kant doesn't do enough or something, so he goes...
Well, Kant was a real pissant.
The other thing he says about Kant is... Well, he didn't say it about Kant, but he says, like, when you're talking about means and ends, and this is the problem I had with Kant before, and I don't remember what our resolution to it was, but a end can always be a mean to something even greater. Like, I'm getting coffee to make my mother happy, let's say. And then you say, I'm making my mother happy so I feel good. She's become a mean to an end. I'm making myself feel good because when I feel good, that means others feel good. You are now a means to... when either feels good, all of society prospers. Like, you can keep changing the scope of a means and an end.
Yeah, but you can only act the first original scope.
But no, because then you can say, like, getting coffee is now the end because
you
I
cannot predict the future. You do not know what will happen. So
but if you say, like, I'm getting coffee to make my mother happy, then you could say I'm getting coffee because, and then the means is, do I take a vehicle or do I do this or it's like, do I pay with cash? Do I pay with debit? Do I have to work to do?
Don't pay with debit because they charge you through the nose if you use it too often.
You just, like, it goes down and down and down and down. Like, see, like, you can't.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true about debit?
Yep.
I thought debit was based on just direct deposit from the bank.
Well, banks have this annoying thing, which I really don't like. It might just be TD, but when I was like changing some stuff in my account, not that is the thing.
Okay, fine. We're in Canada.
Yeah, but I was changing my account, and a person's like, "Oh, you've been using your debit card a lot lately. Do you want to like change to unlimited? It will cost you like a fee for whatever. However, it gets rid of like well, it's unlimited, so you don't have the monthly interaction cap. And it's like, oh, what's the monthly interaction? It's like, if you make more than like 25 purchases with your debit card, every time after that, they charge you $1 for every time you use it.
Right.
And I was like buying stuff with my debit card that maybe cost $2.
Right, so it makes it larger.
Yeah.
If you're buying larger stuff, it wouldn't.
Yeah, and so I was actually kind of pissed off about that.
Yeah, no, that definitely would.
Because, I don't know, I feel like the banks are sort of doing you a service, like by holding your money heavy as amount, but they're also using your money. I feel like they shouldn't be charging you else for the service because banks use your money as collateral for their own investments.
Well, they don't. That's why there's interest. That's why banks slowly give you money if you keep your money in there.
Yeah, but I'm saying like all the little charges and fees stuff.
Yeah, well,
that kind of annoys me.
But that's not necessary. They just do it because they can.
Yeah, and
but they are paying you back for putting money there.
I know.
They're saying, give us your money, and we'll give you a little bit of money back because we can use your money to make investments.
Yeah, but
except for Swiss banks, they actually take your money.
Yeah, but you also have to like set up the saving accounts and stuff with banks, and I don't know. It feels like they're taking advantage. People shouldn't let banks take so much advantage of them.
Hard to have other options.
Start my own bank.
Yeah, but you could.
Probably how some banks started.
Yeah, probably. Like Rent-A-Wreck, I think, probably started as like, well, that was actually a guy doing a joke, but now it's like a big official thing. But
yeah, but some things probably start with feel like, I'm not standing for this anymore.
Yeah.
Someone should stand up. Why not I stand up? And then they stand up.
Yeah.
And then they slowly get corrupted, and as they pass it on to someone else, and that person passes it on to
well,
someone
that's
else,
the thing, right?
it
like,
loses its original form.
You have to overthrow the
everything
tyrant,
else.
but then you become the tyrant in turn with your new method. And so you have to be overthrown in turn. You have to keep overthrowing the older generation, but keep the lessons they learned because they do some great things. Like, you can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater. You have to, and that is Jordan Peterson's thing. Like, you see it everywhere once you start reading the book. You're like, it's everywhere. And reading it, holy cow, those books are so boring. But you think about like, well, they're not boring. It's incredibly interesting. It's not boring at all. It's incredibly difficult to read. That's a different way to put it. But you think about so much other stuff because you'd be rather doing anything else than reading it. So you have like the greatest ideas. It's
wow,
great.
that's like my math class, except I don't have great ideas because in there trying to think about other stuff or just thinking about other stuff and I miss things. It's all so dull.
You are listening to The Fool and the Philosopher.
You know how we talk about how it's always said like the only people that should lead are the people that don't want to lead?
Mm-hmm.
You know how you actually do that but also make it so that they're good leaders still? Like trained to lead? So you have someone that doesn't want to lead, so they're not in it for the power. They didn't sign up just to get the power. And they also have been trained from birth to become a great leader. So not only are they in it just to be a leader, because they have no choice, and they're not in it for power, but also they have the training. There is a system that allows you to do that and have the best leader possible.
Ah, this is what you're going back to earlier.
And it's monarchy. And I was thinking about this, and I was like, wait a minute, monarchy is actually like a really good idea. Just the problem is, when you give someone so much power, they become corrupt. But would you rather have someone become corrupt with power or someone seeking power in the first place? Like, I don't trust anyone that's in charge. Like, anyone that wants to become a leader of anything, I don't trust.
Yeah.
It's a bit like, do you have your life so put together that you can lead anything? It seems unlikely.
Well, even when you're like starting a premise about nobility, I was thinking about like the dangerous thing is like your first cousin killing you off and your father so he can rule.
Yeah.
Because like when you have like the son has been taught how to become a king. This is how you become king.
Yeah.
The first cousin has been the first cousin of some like lesser house who's been taught. He's like the backup, but he wasn't taught like you. Like the the understudy in a play isn't going to be as good as the first actor usually.
Yeah, and they might be seeking power because they're jealous of it. But I think a king's position is actually subordinate to every other person in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because you have to serve every single person as a king, right? Because every time someone has a problem, it's yours. You have to be the person that shows them the way to like live and to be, and you have to make the judgments, and you're their servant. But because you are their servant, that means they have to make your life as easy as possible so you can serve. So they give you the finest food and bed so you don't have to think about the stuff. You can worry about governing the place. And so we look at kingship and monarchies in general backward. We look about it like this person gets a bunch of power and they like rain down on from high, but really they're at the bottom giving a helping hand so that they can continue. It's like you give like the workman a sandwich every day on your way past because he's fixing the road for you or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what it is, and it's like that guy gets free sandwiches. We should abolish that system or something. And I wonder if I don't know how to. It's weird because the thing about democracy is if someone's crazy, then they leave after a while at least. Whereas if you get a bad king, you're in trouble. So you almost need like a monarchy
with
a non-confidence vote or with assassins. Actually, yeah, really. Huh. Maybe, I don't know why we switched to democracy. It seems like we had a great idea.
And the assassins would really encourage people to stay good.
Well, actually, we still do have a monarchy, I guess.
Yeah.
And technically, we actually have a very constitutional monarchy. Actually, has a good idea in that like Queen Elizabeth can actually overturn any ruling.
Yeah.
So she is a check on power. So she is actually the ultimate ruler.
Yeah.
It's just she doesn't do it, and because nobody would want her to do it, and nobody would listen if she said it. But it's a shame almost.
Yeah.
Because if she could, although if she did, the hubbub might actually give time for other people to, it would probably permanently abolish the monarchy, but it is like a little check on the
well, the monarchy can stop, basically, as far as I've seen it, is the monarchy can stop one thing once.
Yeah, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
So it's like a little safeguard, I guess. I think, the United States actually has a better law system overall. I think they actually have a really solid one, but because it exists, whereas Canada and the UK don't actually have formalized laws, I understand it. It's more based on precedent.
Yeah.
So it's because it's common law. So it's...
And setting precedents is important if you're saying them for the first time, which is weird.
But it's also... well, that makes sense.
It makes sense, but it's still kind of weird.
But it also means that instead of saying that we've found the order, or we found the right way of things, it does mean that we instead are trying to walk the infinite stair or the Tao path by saying we're constantly changing and trying to find it. But of course the United States has a system which is we're pretty sure this is solid, so we're going to make this part of the Constitution, which cannot change unless 2/3 of the country... The United States isn't actually a democracy. They're a republic, which means popular vote isn't enough to change things. You actually can't change things unless you have 2/3 of the popular vote.
Yeah.
So, the major things. Yeah. Like the amendments in the Constitution.
Canada
are very hard to change.
Yeah, there's some balances and checks that Canada has.
Well, Canada, I think Canada is actually pretty terribly designed in a lot of ways because we elect a representative for our province or territory, who then, as many of them as there are, is whatever party wins, and then that party chooses the prime minister. So we don't even vote for prime minister. Yeah. And then that prime minister chooses the cabinet. So they basically get all the power. We basically elect a dictator if we have a majority.
Yeah.
If we don't have a majority, then it works.
Yeah, but there's certain laws in Canada which have a fundamental backing, which is they cannot be changed unless the citizens of Canada vote on them.
Yeah.
One of them is the draft.
Right.
Canada cannot have a draft unless over 50% of the whole population votes for it, and we have several fundamentals like that.
Yeah, I think a republic's actually a better idea. And a lot of, although a monarchy might be the problem with the monarchy is then...
What about a republic monarchy?
The problem with the monarchy is you almost need the rulers of a monarchy to be really old, so they die often, because then you can get change happening.
Or have them in constant fear for their life with assassins.
Or, ideally, actually, monarchs would be young, but die young. They would rule from, the age of 20 to 40, or no, not 20, 20 is too young. They'd rule from the age of 30 to 40, and then
step down?
I was going to say just die young from weird I don't know.
Imposed monarchy disease?
Yeah, because then what you get is people that are...
Oh, that's a weird form of government. But genetically modified people to rule you?
Well, that's actually...
that sounds like a science fiction.
Well, that's kind of how it was, but it's not as much because they tend to live longer. But because when you breed with only monarchs who are fed well and have good genetics and stuff, you're actually like nobles were like a lot bigger and healthier than the average
Probably
person.
going to live longer.
It's like the executioners had their own genetic strain because they were so isolated from the rest of society. They're like a different like subspecies of human.
And so did the knights.
Yeah, the knights were like bred to be super warriors.
That was why there's actually a huge thing about not marrying peasants.
Because you don't want to like get the lower genetics. What if it was like a giant peasant? You, woman, you can't fit in my carriage. You are the chosen one.
You shall bear my giant children.
But we'll need a new carriage.
Oh, have you seen Lord Aramond's new wife? She's huge.
Oh, good for him, keeping the country safe. Yeah, but you almost need, they roll from like 30 to 40, so they're up to date. Like they can, new technology and stuff, they're like, we're implementing that. We're looking at these issues from like a fresh perspective. But then once they become stagnant in their ideas and stuff, like I'm not saying 40 stagnant, but just ruling for 10 years, you become stagnant. So, because you're like, I think I'm doing it okay now or something. So you're like, you need to go, like pow.
But what if you like get the Marcus Aurelius?
So then they just die. Well, but it does get rid of like the great leaders early.
Well,
but the risk is that's far less a risk than having a bad leader for a long time.
Well, here's the idea with the assassins, right?
Yeah.
So you have like a monarch, right?
Yeah.
And let's say
you vote on assassins.
Yeah, no, you not vote on assassins, but so like every 4 years or something, I don't know, or like every year is a little too much. But like every like few years, you have a vote. It's just a yes or a no.
Yeah.
And if there's like enough yeses, the assassin just kills the current monarchy.
Yeah.
And
But the problem with that is that the people are uppity, right? Like the peasants are uppity, and they're always complaining about something. So you need it to be like 80% of dissatisfaction or something.
Yeah.
Because
80% dissatisfaction minus 1% for every year.
Yeah, that sounds something like that. Because what you get is like you get this issue where like 50% of people in current politics don't like the person who's in already.
Yeah.
Minimum like 50%. So you have to basically discard that 50% vote and add like another 25% or something. Mm-hmm. So you have to be like 75% have to vote to kill this. But I like the 80% minus 1 every year they've been in rule, so it's easier and easier to get rid of them, just so that you're not entirely stagnant. Mm-hmm. You could also actually just make it a vote, though. You don't have to kill them. If you're doing a vote already, you could just... But it would make them try to be more likable.
Yes.
If it was a kill thing.
Well, that's how I think it's a kill thing. That's the interesting thing about American politics, not Canadian, but the Americans have the limiter on you can only like be president for 8 years.
Yeah.
Is like if you get into president for your second term, you can be a really miserable bastard afterwards.
They can
get rid of you.
Get rid of you, though, yeah.
Yeah.
And Canada, you can just be a tyrant for the rest of your life if you want.
The rest of your term.
Well, no, because you can get voted in as many times as you want, right? Like,
yeah, but I mean, you have to be voted in.
Yeah, but as long as, like, But I think, like, a system of, like, hereditary dictatorship, where it's, like, your kid... Or even, you could even do it, like, if you don't want to make it all about one family, you could even just, like...
Have adoptions?
Just, like, like, go to an orphanage and grab a kid, and then raise them as royalty. And then, like, the orphanage also has one less kid in it. So that's... And you have to, like, probably get 5 in case the king dies. Like, you want to have backup. So maybe have 20 on the back burner of different ages. And then, like...
There! It's not so hard, is it? Whatever, the Wizard series?
Yeah.
We just invented a new form of government.
The Rogue Wizard series, like its whole mission statement sort of thing was to invent a new form of government. And he always ended up with democracy. And we've invented, like, a sort of democracy, monarchy, weird hybrid thing.
Republic monarchy.
Well, it's a monarchy where you vote on killing posing the ruler.
Yeah, but what would you call that? So like a
democratic monarch, like because we have the constitutional monarchy, but it's different. I would say it's like democratic monarchy or like a democratically enabled monarchy or something.
Yeah. Well, I want to have the assassination and.
I don't know if we need the assassination.
Like a name or.
Like what's like. Governed by assassins, though. That's like fear or power or anarchy. Like you have like a democratic cratocracy or something. But
I mean, you don't even need the assassin. The person when they get elected could just have a chip in their neck, and if like too many votes go the way they. Well, I think having it in the hand. You can't have someone's life in the hands of technology like that. I think it has to go to assassin.
Yeah, you need an assassin. But
then you'd have the royal assassin, but you'd almost have to have it so the assassin wasn't high up or known to the royalty, because they might try to defend this.
The other thing you could do...
Or you need, like, backup assassins, or you could just not have the assassins.
The other thing you could do is just have, like... And this would be... You'd have to calculate it, right?
Yeah.
But let's say in Canada, there's 30,000 people, and we said 80% have to vote for it,
Yeah.
right? So let's call that, like, 25 million people.
Yeah.
Just for... So what you do is you just, like, every year you can vote or not, and the votes just add up until you hit... And let's say you have to double... No, you have to, like... You have to equal the current population. So, after 35 million votes, no matter what year they are cast in, the ruler's done. So, and every year you get one vote. And I was thinking at first it could just be a pool where every year you vote by chucking in $1 or not.
Yeah.
But then, like, people will claim that, like, I need $1,000, I'm gonna go kill the royalty. So that could be an issue. So I think just, like, 35, you need, like, votes equal to the population, and they can accumulate over any amount of time. Which also means if you start killing off your citizens, you're actually more likely to be kicked out.
Oh.
Yeah, that's good, huh?
Yeah.
Except you'd be kicked out after 2 years of that, so it has to be 3 times the population.
Yeah. Well...
So votes equal to 3 times the population.
Like I was saying, this...
No, to twice the population. Twice the
You
population.
need, like, an organization of assassins or something. You can't, like, have the assassins start taking power and abusing.
Yeah, well, I think the assassins are a terrible idea in this whole system. I think they should be...
Well, I think what I want them is you need to have fear in the ruler.
I've
Like,
now voted against... No, it has to be 50% higher than the population.
Or-
I voted against them 3 times, and there's 2 of us in this room, so the assassins are out.
well, you could even have it so, like, there's a minimum period, let's say.
Yeah.
Like, if you're voted out within the first, like, 10 years,
Yeah.
then you get assassinated. But after that, you just retire. So it sort of keeps the fear of being a good ruler. Because that's what I kind of want the assassin is like, oh, I better be a good ruler. I better, like,
But if
do
you
what's...
if you do the system of it has to be 50% higher than the population, that means for 1 year you could rule with every single person hating you. Which means in the next year when you're, like, automatically out, I think, like, you are you're not going to survive very long anyways. You want to go out on good terms. This way, also, you don't get voted out with hatred. It's just like people eventually think it's time. Because you can be like, you were a good ruler for 50 years. You only got, like, 1,000 votes a year, but it's time.
Yeah.
Something like that. Or it could even be as well, so you have 2 systems where it's like, if you get a vote worth 150% of the population, like that many accumulated votes over the years, you're out. But also, if you get 80% in a single year, you're also out. Because you don't
Also, you can only cast a no vote once.
So you have to vote... No, you can vote as many times as you want.
I think, like, once you said I don't want them, then you don't want them.
No, you do it every year, though. That way they accumulate. So you can... So that means, like...
But you could have just, like, some guy who really hate...
Yeah, but discontent brews.
I guess.
You can't keep that bottled in. You have to, like... If there's one person that hates an immoral ruler, that means after...
And they're also immortal.
Several million years, they'll eventually get them out. And I think they should, because that person... Like, they have been a citizen, an unhappy citizen, for 35 million years. And I think it's time that there's a change.
Just 2 guys there in a group.
Yeah, it's just like, I'm voting against you again. But yeah, it also means that killing your citizens makes your thing go up.
And so having higher populations is good for you.
Yeah, and it also means, like, you kill half your... Like, you know Stalin, right?
Mm-hmm.
How he, like, let's say, I don't know the number, but let's say he killed 10 million.
Yeah.
Suddenly he's 10 million votes closer to being kicked out. Because every dead person is basically a vote for you getting kicked out.
Yeah.
So I think it's...
But every newborn person is a vote for you staying in.
Yeah, so you also want your people to survive instead of starve, like Stalin's people starved. So I think this is actually an amazing system. It has broken your rule of talking about politics, but I think that, like... No! I think it's a good idea. I like this.
Well, I don't want to not talk about politics. I want to not talk about current politics.
But this is very current. I want to switch to the system right now.
Current events.
Or just
Related.
avoid talking about contentious issues.
Yeah.
Maybe, oh no, that's not right, because we're talking about some of those contentious stuff. The foundations of morality, Connor. It doesn't get more contentious than that. We want to talk about stuff that easily sets people in a tiffy. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like overthrowing the democracy and installing a monarchy.
Or getting rid of monarchies.
Yeah.
Or having assassins kill monarchs.
Yeah.
It's almost treason.
Yeah, well, we didn't say which monarchs.
Yeah.
God bless the Queen.
Long may she live. And
May,
rule.
long may she reign.
Yeah, long may she reign.
Yeah, she's great. Best queen. I
Yeah.
hope she phones me on my 100th birthday and wishes...
Hello! Is it Cameron? Happy 100th birthday! No one wished me happy 100th birthday when I turned 100. I had to wish it to myself.
No, everyone phones her on her birthday, on her 100th birthday.
If I can get the Queen's number, I'll phone her on
I
her
think
100th
it's
birthday.
available. Like, I
I bet a lot of people have that idea, but if she hits her 100th birthday, I'm going to phone her.
Yeah, or at least like a front desk might be available. You probably don't have her like cell phone or something.
Or send some mail to her. Happy 100th.
She probably has mail opened like, in some faraway place that's like full of bodyguards and...
Well, I'm saying it's probably carefully vetted, but still.
It also means that royalties' lives are less in danger because if people want you out, they just have to vote for you. They don't have to like kill you. Killing you isn't the only way.
They don't have to make an organization and get rid of you.
And if like the next orphan in line wants you in power, they just have to vote against you.
Yes, if you die of natural causes...
Orphanocracy, I call it.
If you die of natural causes, right?
Yeah.
Then you roll a dice equal to the amount of orphans there are, and it goes to that one, so you can't even plan like, well, I get rid of him, and then I get rid of him out.
And you also bring in a new orphan.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that also means your odds are very low of coming in.
Mm-hmm.
But the orphans are all trained. And they have everything provided for because it would suck to like, you never gain power and all you do is train for that.
Yeah.
So like, it's like being like a minor noble. It sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why resentment grows.
Yeah.
So that is unfortunate. So maybe like if you are an orphan monarch for like 10, like orphan noble for like 10, 15, let's say if you're, by the time you're 30, you're just sent out, you're like, okay, you can...
Well, no, if they die of causes, if like the person who's in rule dies of some causes, then it's random. However, if they're voted out, then it goes to next in line.
That could work good, yeah. And also but if you're allowed to drop out after like you turn 25 or something.
Yeah. And
if you do decide to drop out, you're also given like every amenity you could ask for. Like they give you money, they give you food, they give you place. Like because you were. There's actually a book series where they call them sacrifice. Yeah. Like the royalty they call sacrifice instead, which I think's kind of cool. So yeah, orphanocracy. You said you wanted to end in about an hour, so yeah, because you got
I got stuff
to do. So we'll wrap it up there. Thank you for listening. Yeah, it hurt a little to say that. No, I take it back. No, I don't want to say that.
You're like, haha, fool.
Well, I was talking to you. Thank you for listening to me. Yeah, saved it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I really do. Does anyone really? I don't know. Is anyone there? Do you care? I don't know if I care. Why would you care? I don't know. All right.
You have to do stuff like this with the approach that no one will ever listen to it.
Well, I don't really care if they do. Like, just like anyone that like
just pissing into the wind, having the sea.
Yeah. So,
even one drop of sweat.
Well, no. I think like yeah.
Well, that's us. On or out.
All right.